Well, hi everyone. Shall we start? Correct. Now, so we have fully complete lesson number 7, money and financial institutions. And I hope and I believe that you have worked on the past papers. Is that so? I would appreciate a reply from the chat as well. And to give you our next plan, so at this moment in grade 12 syllabus, the grade 12 syllabus again 1.0, the lesson number 1, basis of business, we have completed. And lesson number 2, business social responsibility is also completed. And the lesson number 3, government and business lesson completed. And then straight away, I think we came to this lesson number 7, which is the money and financial institutions. And probably we'll be having 2 sessions, including today's one, to discuss the past papers. So then we'll be shifting to, as our next lesson, which is lesson number 11, trade lesson. And I believe you have the tute with you, trade lesson. If not, just speak to me, I'll make the arrangement. So then by the time we start this lesson, you should be having the tute with you, lesson number 11, trade. So once we complete the trade, again, we can see, come back to lesson number 4, 5. So likewise, we complete the lesson. There's no mandatory requirement that, we have to follow the order. So what I'm currently doing is identify the important lessons which have a more weightage in terms of the paper. Right now, without further introduction, so let's move to the past papers. And I believe, as per your level, you have worked on this. And I would appreciate your cooperation across the session. So you will send me the answers through the chat. So then I get an understanding about how you have understood the concept. Right. Now I'll share my screen for the questions. If there's an explanation, I'll come back to the board and I'll explain. Well, so moving to your past paper tute. So let me share my content first. Well, now guys, this is from this paper only includes the stuff from 2010 to 2020, but also to make sure the fact that 2021 paper also released now, and I'll pick some questions from that as well. So let's first try to finish 2022 today, and then we'll move to 2021 as well, because the secret to doing past papers is that you always pick the questions from the latest year. Not that you start from the year that you born, right? Past papers, because the updated figures will provide in the latest examination. Right, so let's move to the discussion then. 2020 A-level paper 1. There are 2 statements, statement A and statement B. Public service provident fund is applicable for all permanent employees in the government sector. So we talk about these provident funds, which came under the lesson of contractual savings funds, especially when you come to the classification of the financial institutions. And the statement B, employees provident fund is applicable for all private sector employees. Right. So there are 2 statements given. And out of the above 2 statements, they're asking, what is correct or what is incorrect. Right, guys, what do you think? I would like to see your answers through the chat, please. Yes, for the question number 10, Okay, so you guys saying it's the answer number 2. Is that correct? Question number 10. Okay, let's see. Yes, guys, remember this. Now, the public service provident fund, because when you say provident funds, we can mainly divide into two, private sector and the public sector. Now, the public service provident fund is not applicable for all permanent employees. It is not applicable. Why? Because the employees who have a pension scheme are not, eligible for this. So this is mainly applicable for the employees who do not have a pension scheme. So then obviously A is incorrect. And coming to B, employees provident fund, which is EPF, is applicable for all private sector employees. Yes. So the all private sector employees need to, is eligible for that, and the employer must remit all the funding for those employees. So that is, as far as you concern, question number 10, correct answer is number 2. So even we can double check, guys, with that. If you check the lesson number 7, you can see the fact here. I'll extract the stuff for you. Now, if you check the TUTE, page number 53 of the TUTE, and let me just show you the extractions here. It is clearly shows that all public sector employees who are not entitled to government pension scheme will be eligible. Now, in the question they're asking, all permanent public sector employees are eligible. So in that case, that statement is incorrect. Here, all public sector employees who are not entitled for government pension will be entitled. So then it's not all employees, the employees who are not entitled for a pension scheme. But when you come to private sector, since they do not have a pension scheme like the public sector, they will be eligible for this fund. So you can see, 2 marks from this area from your recent examination, 2020 exam. So I believe, you got it correctly. Right, now moving back to my next question. So with that, then you get something like fill in the blank type of question. And I would like to see your answers for 32A and 32B as well. What do you think, guys? 32A. Near money. Now you see the types of money. There are 4 types of money, if you think of, right? So mainly. So when you realize those types of money, there are a couple of stuff that we have to deal with. Especially there's a relationship with the functions of money and the types of money. Now, guys, if you're starting from the currency money to the bank money to the near money to the electronic money, so near money is something, special. It's like very close, but not 100% money, right? So near money is an asset, team. Is an asset, guys, that can be converted into cash easily and also function as an accumulation of wealth, or you can say accumulation of a value. Because what happens in the near money, for example, what you cannot do in the near money, what you cannot do in the near money is the exchange. If you think about the 4 functions of the money, right? Because now, what is sort of an example for near money? Something like you are having your fixed deposit certificate, FD certificate. So when you have your FD certificate, let's say 100,000. Now, can you, when I go to shopping, then all shopping, your bill is 100,000. Can you give this fixed deposit certificate to the counter? Will they accept it? No. So they will politely or unpolitely will say, please go and convert this into cash and then bring cash for us. So this is something, and you cannot, when you have a passbook or savings account passbook, when you go to the shop, when you make the payment, you cannot give the passbook to the cashier, right? So it will not function, this part of this thing, right? But it will, act as an accumulation of wealth where you can store wealth. So that's the stuff when you come to the concept of near money. So that has been tested in that year. So if you go back, so near money is an asset anyway that can be converted into cash easily, as you can, easily convert the FD certificate into cash. And also it functions as an accumulation of value, or even you can say wealth. Value or wealth. Right. Moving to the next one, 32B. Now this is also check your knowledge in terms of the types of money, right? The bank money and currency. Now what they're saying, there's a blank of bank money is comparatively lower than the currency. And again, there's a blank, deposit is an example for bank money. So that is something you can easily fill, right? Like මෙතනින් බලලා මුලින්ම second blank එක easily fill කරන්න පුළුවන්. They're asking an example for bank money. You can say demand deposit, or you can say current account, or even you can say checks, or even you can say balance of a current account. So all are acceptable answers. You can say a demand deposit because for the current account, another word that we use is a demand deposit. So you can say demand deposit, or either you can say current account deposit, or even you can say a check deposit. So that is an example of bank money. Now, what should be the ideal word for the blank number 1? That is, guys, the liquidity. Because if you compare, now what's the example for a bank money? Yes, check. Now, what do you mean by the liquidity? Now, liquidity is that, how quickly you can transfer an asset to cash without any loss, without having a minimum loss at least. So if you compare a check worth of 50,000 and cash, right? 50,000 cash bundle. So this is, let's say, 50,000 notes, 50,000 notes in cash, and this is just a check of 50,000. Now, the meaning of liquidity is how quickly you can convert an asset to cash. Now, this is in already form of cash. So, yeah, you do not have to convert again because it's already in the form of cash. So, then I would say the liquid is 100%. See the liquid will happen. මොකද ආපහු මේක cash වලට convert කරන්න දෙයක් නැහැ. But here, so that the check you will have to convert into cash, where you will have to deposit in an account, or maybe if it is a check which is not crossed, there may be chance that you can get the money from the bank account. If not, definitely you will have to, wait some time that you deposit in a bank account, and the following day you'll be able to get money. So it will take time, right? As you see, it will take time. So 50,000. So then, if you compare currency versus the bank money, the currency has a more liquidity, which is 100%. So the question, it says ask the lower, so then we can say the liquidity is lower of the bank money compared to the currency. And what do you think about the next one? How do you say when you compare the bank money and the NIA money? So here the currency, and here you do have bank money, which is a check. And here if you have NIA money, then I would say bank money has a more liquidity than NIA money. For example, FD certificate or a government security or a commercial paper, something like, for an example for NIA money. But we are not in a position to calculate as a percentage. What we can, provide is a comparable idea. අපිට කියන්න බෑ මේක 100යි නම් bank money 80යි මේක 70යි 80% 70%. We cannot tell like that. So what we can tell is a comparison between each type of money. හරි එහෙනම් මේක 100% මේක ඊට වඩා අඩුයි මේක ඊටත් වඩා අඩුයි. But if you compare NIA money and bank money, so what we can say, bank money is having a more liquidity. Because why? Rather than converting a government security, rather than converting a FD, you can easily convert a check into cash. So that's why it has more liquidity. So likewise, NIA money has a less liquidity when you compare with the bank money. So that is something additional to refresh your knowledge. So let's come back to this. So you can say the liquidity of bank money is comparatively lower than currency. Right. And now, guys, the purpose of discussing the past paper is not just to give you the answer, right? Because even if you could Google or if you go to the examination website, you can, without any difficulty, you can find the answers. The core objective of discussing the past papers with you is not to give you the answer, but to give you the overall idea and refresh the content from the lesson and to show you what possible questions could be checked based on the the content, right? එනිසා answer එක මේක නම් අපි මේ විදිහට ඒකේ තියෙන all the content එක අත් එක discuss කරලා ඒක refresh කරලා in order to if you have any doubts and stuff, so we can clear it out, right? So I believe that is fine. So as far as you concern 2021, now so far you should have collected 4 marks, so 2 for this and 2 for this. So how the marks allocation for fill in the blanks is, there will be 4 blanks where you'll be get 0.5 marks. So 0.5 into 4, which will be 2 marks. Well, with that, shall we move to question number 33A and 33B as well, that is also fill in the blanks. Well, let's see the chat. I haven't received any answer yet for that. 33A, what do you think? The main function of the cooperative rural bank is to collect There's a blank what? Blank from people residing in rural areas and to provide strong institutional support for rural. What do you think? Deposit and people. Yes, I would say yes, to collect the deposit. They will be collecting the deposit because why? Cooperative Rural Bank comes under the, comes under banking category? Cooperative rural banks, that comes under banking category? No, it's not a bank. It's a bank, but it's not comes under the banking category. It comes under the other deposit taking financial institutions. Well, so it has an authority to deposit, to accept the deposit from the public. Not every financial institute get that chance to accept the deposit from the general public. Now, if you think about that leasing company, they don't have the right to accept the deposits, but then you might wonder, so why they collect leasing installment? Yeah, that is their main income, but they are no longer able to accept the deposits. We talk about those classifications. So the first blank, yes, they have a right to accept the deposits. So that should be the first blank. So they do collect deposit, or even you can say money, but the best thing is to write deposit from people residing in rural areas and to provide strong institutional support for rural people. Okay, some are saying rural people. That is also correct, but what you can, the proper one would be for the rural economy, or at least the rural community, right? So Gramya Arthika in Sinhala, we say Gramya Arthika, the rural economy, or the rural community. Gramya Prajava in Sinhala, we say, right? Harina, the best one is the economy. Or even you can say like developer, that is also possible one, or rural economy or rural development. Well, with that, shall I go to 33B? The two categories of institutions that are eligible to be authorized as the primary dealers. Primary dealers. What do you think? Primary dealers. Yes, so there are two parties. So most of the cases, every licensed commercial bank, LCB, they do have a primary dealer unit. I think you might remember, when I show you from the central bank website, there are two types of things. So most of the cases, all licensed commercial banks, they do have a banking unit, right? They do have a primary dealer unit. So then ours is license here, LCB, license commercial banks. And other one is the dedicated primary dealer, or you can say registered primary dealers, because their only job is to conduct the primary dealer activities. So you can say dedicated primary dealers or registered primary dealers. Their only job is to engage in the primary, transaction. So even check you, guys, if you check these CPSL website, just revise your knowledge. So if you go to financial system, so you can see the primary dealers. So when you check the primary dealers, you can see the licensed commercial banks. and dedicated primary dealers, or else we can refer registered primary dealers. You can see the list here, right? So Bank of Ceylon, it's a licensed commercial bank, and they do have a primary dealer unit. Now, Capital Alliance Limited is a registered primary dealer or a dedicated primary dealer. Entrust Securities is a dedicated or registered primary dealer. Commercial Bank of Ceylon, they do have a primary dealer unit. People's Bank, they do have a primary dealer unit. Sampath Bank, primary dealer unit. Ceylon, primary dealer unit. Pan Asia, primary dealer unit. Well, if you think the Wealth Trust Securities, that's a dedicated or a registered one. Well, so I believe that part is correct. So coming back to the TUT. Right, so well, I believe now you collected another 2 marks, altogether 6 marks from part 1 paper. Well, let's move to the part 2. Right, 2 advantages that the businessman can obtain from a leasing companies. Yeah, so we talk about leasings. Leasings comes under the special financial institutions, and they're asking the advantages. There are so many advantages in our to think about the advantages when you come to a leasing company. Yes, I would like to hear from you. Yes, guys, so waiting for your answers. What do you think? Well, why can't you think about, and it will save a huge cash outflow even without making the full payment, you can still use the asset. Now imagine for a business that you need a distribution vehicle, right, which will cost you let's say 10 million, but when you go for a leasing facility, you just pay a 1 million of down payment and then you get the vehicle on leasing basis, right? So where you can still use the asset, which is the distribution vehicle, without making the full payment, right? Can we write that, please? So isn't it an advantage for a business? What else? What else, guys, we can think of? I have asked you to share the your tweet as well. So this is what I was talking about, the ability to use high valued assets, which was cost you 10 million without paying the full value upfront. You're just making a down payment and you can still use the asset. Is it good for you, right? And the lease rent paid being free from the income tax. So that's one of the advantage. And you can overcome the losses of the capital losses, resulting from the obsolescence of the assets. So when the asset is, maybe you think, out of date, right? So, end of the lease period, you try to again agree to hand over the asset. And a habit of earning a higher returns without making a large investment, which will save you a good cash outflow from the business. And also being able to pay leasing installment while earning an income, because using the distribution vehicle that you are earning the income, so while you are still making the installments, right? So these are a set of stuff that we can consider, right? So could you please make a note of it? so they are asking guys, right, just for advantage. They're not asking for explanation. So if in case the question was something like this, write two advantages and explain. So then you got to explain the things. For example, the first point you can explain, for an example, taking the which I just highlighted, right? Kind of an asset, kind of a machinery or high value machinery that worth of this amount that you can take, and then you should be able to still use. So likewise, you should be able to come up with example if in case they're asking for an explanation. Now, in this case, they're asking just to write. So you have to identify the meaning of the action word. So write, status, state, list down. So all you have to just write. But if in case explain, discuss, those stuff need to be further a detailed explanation. Well, so I'll give like another 1 minute for this, and after that, let's move to the next question. State 4 agency activities of CBSL, and I'm expecting the answers from your end. State 4 agency. So we discussed the activities of CBSL, mainly the main activities and the agency one. So in this case, they're asking 4 agency activities. For that, just for 2 marks, for each activity will be get 0.5 marks. So 0.5 into 4, which will be 2 marks. Well, what do you think? So if you check your tute, I can come up with the page number, right? The activities. One of the activities of a CBSL agency and the main activities, right? If you check the page number 18, you can come up with the agency functions of the tute, right? So I'll just write 4 of those. Let me show the content to you. That will be gained just 0.5 marks for the 4. The management of the state loans, they do have a separate department in CBSL, the public debt department. Foreign exchange control is one of agency function. Act as a primary institution for the small scale financial or as the rural development, and also the management of the employee provident fund, that also one of the agency function. And apart from that, there's another one that they will be working against the money laundering and the terrorist financing. That's also one of the additional point. So try to have an idea about the 2 types of functions conducted by CBSL. And for that, you can easily, go back to CBSL website, and that is also clearly mentioned there. So this is as per your marking scheme 2020. And I'm again telling you that since we have done with this lesson, just see whether you participate all 10 sessions, right? So because today's 11th session, so you must have joined 10 sessions and just check what is that you missed. Go through the tute and whatever the empty or a blank page that you're having, complete those. So having completed notes is one of a key, right? When you come to the answering the questions. Well, because otherwise, things will keep adding to you. Now you guys are the next in line to face the examination, right? 22, then 2023. So probably 22 will be conducted on this December, anyway, before this year, and then surely for your batch. Because you don't have to get stressed at the last moment. If you work from the beginning, without any stress and any pressure, that will be a good thing, I think. Because otherwise, if you keep everything to the last moment, you will be end up with pressurizing and a lot of stress. Well, I believe this is quite fine with you. And if in case if you want to check further stuff, so you can go to the CBSL website. As always, is one of the key website for your, as far as we concern your syllabus, a lot of content that we take from there. So you go to CBSL website and you go to about, and if you click the functions here, you see the two functions, right? The core functions or the main functions. And then you get to here, agency function, right? Management of the public debt, foreign exchange control of the management, fund management of the custodian for an employee provident fund, which is the party who is managing the employees provident fund, and facility financial inclusion, which is for the rural development. And the fifth one is the financial intelligence services to prevent, detect, and investigate money laundering activities and also terrorist financing. That's also one part. So those are stuff. If you want to have a further explanation, you can read those. But just read, you don't have to worry about much because these are advanced stuff. In your syllabus, it's just enough for you to know the functions and with the a brief explanation about this each function, which is mentioning in our tutes. Well, so moving back to that one, so you can easily pick another 2 marks for this altogether. I believe now you have collected 4 marks so far for the part 2. So 4 plus 6, so 10 marks, which is just 5% from your syllabus, 5% from your paper, right? So far. Now the question number 3A, describe 2 differences between licensed commercial bank and a licensed financial company. Actually, there are a lot of similarities, I would say, when you compare a licensed commercial, because most of the services that you can obtain from a licensed commercial bank also could be obtained from a licensed financial company as well, but there are differences, right? So let's see what sort of a difference that we can come up with. Well, now for you to operate a licensed commercial bank, the initial equity or the initial capital is quite high, right? And the bank is monitored under the Banking Act. When you come to financials, right? Financial institutions by the Finance Act. So likewise, there are key differences that you can see. Let's write some differences that you can see. And the main thing, what is the main difference? Can I know the main difference between a bank, between a licensed commercial bank and a licensed financial company. Can I know the main difference, please? Licensed commercial bank versus licensed financial company, LCB, LFC. What the main difference here? What is the main difference? Can I know the main difference? I'm not going to continue until you provide an answer. The main difference between licensed commercial bank and a licensed financial company. What's the difference? And I'm going to point out, Chathupama, what is the main difference between a licensed commercial bank and a licensed financial company? Are you there? Chathupama, what's the difference between a licensed commercial bank and licensed financial company? Yes, maintaining current accounts and not, yeah. So why do you have to wait to provide this answer so long? That's the main difference, because licensed commercial banks, they only get the opportunity or the chance to operate current accounts. So when you see, except that, I don't see much differences. Because why? There are some licensed financial companies earn more profits than licensed commercial banks. But the main difference or the key difference is they do have current accounts, they do not have. Apart from rest of the Starlight, a lot of similarities are there. They do have savings account, fixed deposits likewise. Leasing facilities, all companies, all two provide leasing facilities, likewise similarities. So let's check those differences. You have a right to. Okay, signal problem, breaking the voice. Okay, no issue. Please refer the recording, ask for the recording. Well, shall we write, please? So when you come to differences, maintain current accounts. So license, financial companies will take an ether. Involved in foreign exchange transaction, licensed commercial bank, yes. Licensed financial companies, no. Relatively large capital is required to, start. You can mulma start එක ගන්න ටිකක් ලොකු capital එකක් ඕනේ. මෙතන ඒ තරමටම අවශ්‍ය නැහැ කියන අදහස. So not a relatively large capital. So ඒකෙම opposite එක මෙතන ලියන්න වෙනවා. මෙතන relatively large capital, මෙතන relatively large capital එකක් අවශ්‍ය නැත. Provide agency services. Yeah, licensed financial companies, they don't not provide agent services. Licensed commercial bank, there are two parts, state and private sector, but licensed financial companies all are private sector. We don't see government sector licensed financial companies. And also, if you think about the current accounts, they also do provide overdraft, bank overdraft. No overdrafts, no ODs. With the current accounts, here only private sector. දැන් differences ලියන්න කියවම ගොඩක් වෙලාවට මේ විදිහට ඔයාලට table එකක් use කරන්න පුළුවන් comparatively ලියන්න ඕනේ. Amila, you just joined. So we started the discussion about the past papers, right? And just get the recording and complete the first couple of questions. And I also believe that you have worked on the questions as well. So we are still discussing 2020 paper. Well, shall we move to the next one, which is the last question from 2020, which also gives you another 2 marks. Describe the two main settlement systems of Lanka Settle. So we talk about the payment settlement system, comes under CBSL lesson. Right? So that's what they are checking here. Well, so let's move to the last question of 2020. And there are so many types of payment settlement system, like the SLIP, Sri Lanka Interbank Payment Settlement System, right? RTGS, those stuff. Well, so let's move to that part. So comes under Lanka Settle System. So there are two things comes under Lanka Settle System because they are specifically saying not just the general or not just the settlement system, specifically to the Lanka Settle. So you got RTGS and you got SSDS. The combination we refer as Lanka Settle, right? With that, you need to describe. So try, see the question, describe it. Describe the two main settlement system. So it's not just enough that you write. Well, let's move to next 2019. But prior to that, I would like to go through the marks allocation, the weightage, right? Now, as far as you concern 2020 year, so you realize that there were 6 marks allocated from part 1. So part 1, 6 marks out of 100. And for the part 2, you can see 4 plus 4, 8. So which is out of 200, 14 marks. 14 marks. So 14 marks from 200, which means as a percentage, which is, I would say, like 7%. So 7%. ඒ කියන්නේ ඔයාගේ paper එකේ ලකුණු 100න් ලකුණු 7ක් අහලා තියෙනවා මේ lesson එකේ. So you can see the weightage, right? So just 7 marks out of the total paper. Well, so with that, sorry, I think I forgot something. So we got some other stuffs as well, right? Yes, so this is also from 2020, I guess. EPF and ETF, they're asking those stuff. Right? I think then the weightage will increase in a good margin then. So let's check this out. Well, yes. So ETF, EPF, we talk about in the contractual savings one. I think, yeah, so I think they will increase in a good manner. I didn't notice this one. So then for the part 2, that will be 8 plus 6, 14, right? So it's like 20, it's like 10% if you think about the weightage, right? So here 8 plus 6, 14. So then 200 out of 200, that is 20, which is 10%. 10%. Yes. So let's move to that. Name the party that should contribute to the employee provident fund. And they mention the minimum their contribution as well. Now, if you think about that manner, guys, that is the both employer and the employee need to contribute. But when you come to ETF, that is only the employer, which is only 3%. But here, both employee and employer, 8% from the employee, the minimum, and the employee need to contribute minimum 12%. So if the employer wish to contribute more, no issue with that. No issue with that, right? So that you are getting just 2 marks. Employee minimum 8%, so that will be deducted from the salary, and the employee will need to make 12%. Those are the minimum thresholds. Well, so let's move to the next set of questions, whether you can get another 4 marks. State 4 points that should be considered when writing a check. Sarala ප්‍රශ්නයක් ඒක general knowledge question එකක් කියලා කියන්නත් පුළුවන්. Right? Check එකක් ලියද්දී මොනවද consider කරන්න ඕනේ? And also briefly explain the importance of a restricted endorsement. Right. So first we'll come to 3A, which is a point that you need to consider when you are writing a check. Now, if you check the content of the tute, you can also find the same stuff, right? Where you need to use unerasable ink or unedible ink. And relevant details should be mentioned in the counterfoil, because the counterfoil is the one that will remain with you once you issue the check. That will be a source document. So you need to mention the facts there. And if you made any error, that is fine, because we all are human. We make errors, but do not use, something like erasing glue, something like Tipex or something like that. But instead, just, struck off with a single line and put your full signature. Because every time you make an error, you don't have to issue a new check and put it in the dustbin, because it will cost you, right? A check is a cost to you, because for checkbook you have to pay. And check should be written only one language. You cannot use multiple language, like where you write the amount in words in another one, you put the pay's name in another language. You have to straight use one language. And the drawer signature must be made as per as I would say the signature, right? You put in when you open the account. The specimens, I would say these signature, because the reason is that they will ask you to put a signature where they will scan and they will save in their system. So that will also happen when you apply for a, I would say in the savings accounts as well. So they'll get your signature, right? So they'll scan it and they'll be saving in their system. So that's why you make sure the same signature that you put always. Sometimes, because we use some shortcut signatures. Sometimes we use, in our mother tongue that we make a signature. Again in English, likewise, some people have different types of signatures or the signs. So that cannot happen here. And pay attention to the date of the check and the steps to be taken for safety, like crossing the drawer's signature must not be placed for the blank check. Now, what happens if you just all the checkbook and you put all the signature, all the blank checks, and someone will get the checkbook and you can just have write the amount, because you already placed your signature. That is not acceptable. And being concerned about the current account balance, you're having just a balance of 50,000, you're issuing 120,000 check, will end up with a rejection unless otherwise you have a bank draft facility. So if the balance is low, what you are trying to issue, just talk to bank and get the OD facility. If not, do not issue the check, because it will reject it. That will be a bad impression for you, right? Well, so those are the stuff, the 4 points, but I'm coming with some different ideas for you. So I will believe that you're fine with that. So a good weightage 2020. 10% from your total pay. Imagine ආගේ pay එකේ ලක්ෂ 10ක් වාට ගන්න පුළුවන් මේ lesson එකේ. අපි බලමු 2019 කොහොමද සහ ඊට පස්සේ අපි යමු 2021 2021 also we'll see the weightage and the types of questions which has been tested. Guys, get the advantages of this class. We conduct this as a group class, so where you can discuss and where you can raise your concern. Do not just stay like you're watching television. I always tell you, TV එක බලන වගේ බලන්න එපා. So interact with the one, when I ask question, just show your support and cooperation, then only so I will be able to see your knowledge level. Well, I believe, guys, shall I give another 1 minute for you? This is not something new that we are discussing here, right? So all the content that we have already discussed, now theoretical session. So this is the past paper discussion. So where you access your knowledge level. Well, let's move to the next one. Briefly explain the imports of the restricted endorsement. So endorsement is something that you try to, in a check, you see the reverse side of the check. There's a place for the endorsement. And when it is restricted, it will, restrict the limit. It will limit the transfer of the check. So that's what we mainly see here. So briefly explain, giving 2 reasons. So that will be getting 2 marks. It's provide the direction of the payer when depositing or transferring a check, plus it will limit the transfer of the checks. Well, so that is about 2020. Shall we move to 2090 as well? First, I would like to hear from you. 2019 question number 1. Actually, then make a question number 1 Nunata. What I put here, something related to the lesson number 7 as well, because they talk about money. What do you think, guys? 2019 question number 1 and 12 and 13. Shall I give some time for you to work out, please? I was saying 5. Yes, so you started from the barter system. That has to be the first one. And then use of money, which is B. And then it's the Industrial Revolution and the Information Era. So it has to be like C, B, A, and D, which is the 5th one. Question number 12. An advantage the investor can enjoy by investing in unit trust. They're asking the investor, right? Investor. So receiving high returns on investment. Yeah, so to some extent, yes. But we have to see the rest of the options. The ability to participate in the management of the unit trust. Now I got to answer like this. 2, can we consider, is that investor joining the management of the unit trust? Then මට answer එකක් ආවා number 2 කියලා. Is that correct? දැන් මම කියවන මෙහෙම කතාවක්. In the unit trust, investor even does not know, right, where his fund is being invested, because that is being managed by the fund managers. Because there are a set of expertise in the unit trust management company, because you just only invest, you just only purchase number of units, and the company will take care about your the money. That's why they create an investment portfolio like this, based on the units. You never know you are, and even that is not applicable for you as well. You don't care, right? Where they have invested as far as you get the return. Correct? So then it's not something that the investor will participate. So that is incorrect. So second option also incorrect. Third one, being entitled to receive a bonus share. Bonus shares ලැබෙනවද? නෑ, bonus shares නැහැනේ unit trust වල. The ability to withdraw the investment at any time without a penalty. Yeah, that is applicable. 5th one, not be necessary to pay income tax on the return. Yeah, there will be income tax, right? So then what we can take is the 4th one, I would say. Question number 13. What do you think about the 13? What is the right statement pertaining to crossing the check? Payee can cross the check which is not crossed. Yes, obviously. Right? Then check එකක් තියෙනවා cross කළා නැත්නම් මොකද කරන්න පුළුවන්? ඉතින් ඔයාලට පුළුවන් නේද මෙහෙම ඉරිද එකක් ගහගන්න. check එකක් තියෙනවා. Right? cross කළා නෑ, so ඔයාලට පුළුවන් මෙහෙම cross කරගන්න. ප්‍රශ්නයක් නෑ. කවුරුත් දන්නේ නැහැනේ කවුද මේ ඉරිද එක ගැහුවේ හරි whatever the stuff that you write within the two parallel lines. Right? So the payee can cross a check which is not crossed. හැබැයි cross කරපු එක crossing එක අයින් කරන්න බෑ. Crossing එක අයින් කරන්න නම් drawer in on a drawer must put his or her full signature. all kinds of cross checks can be transferred to another party by endorsing. No, that is incorrect, right? Not the all kinds of cross checks. That has to be with the endorsing. Cash can be obtained from a bank for counter for all cross check. No, for the cross check you have to deposit and through the bank account you have to take. Cash checks cannot be crossed. That is also incorrect. So I think the right statement you can go with the option number 1. Even cash check also you can cross, no issue with that, right? Now write 4 examples for a licensed specialized bank. There are kind of 6 banks in Sri Lanka, right? For that, how you can just check is that even if you check out tubes, those are there. But if you check here the CBSL website, you can check that as well. If you go to the banking sector, and when you go to the list of licensed specialized banks, right? HDFC, Housing Development Finance Corporation, and National Savings Bank, Pradesh Samwadhana Bank, Sanasa Development, Sri Lanka Savings. ඉතින් මෙතනින් ඕනම 4ක් ලිව්වනම් හරි ආට correct answer එක ගන්න පුළුවන්. So this is actually Sanasa Development Bank. Yeah, so Regional Development Bank කියන්නේ RDB. Well, so what's next? Right, එතකොට ආ බැලුවොත් 2019 paper එක වාට part 1 එකට marks allocation එක දීලා තියෙන්නේ කොච්චරක්ද? So 2 and 4 6, right? 6 and 8, so 8 marks. So let's move to the part 2. Lakshmi wishes to start a firm in her village to buy and sell charity products by obtaining finance from a formal and informal sources. Describe 4 advantages that Lakshmi could gain from a formal financial sources over informal financial. Right now, that is kind of important point because we see the fact that people used to borrow from informal sources. Again, අපි යන ගොඩක් වෙලාට ඔය පොලියට සල්ලි දෙනවා කියලා අපි in normal condition that we say නේද පොලියට සල්ලි දෙනවා හරි ඒ වගේ දෙයක්. ඒ කියන්නේ informal organizations for the informal individuals ලාගෙන් ගත්තොත් ගොඩක් වෙලාට ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ interest rates ගොඩක් වැඩි. අනිත් එක if in case that you find any difficulties to pay back අනිත් එක පොඩි ප්‍රශ්නයක් වෙනවා even for a bank you can go and talk and maybe restructure the debts, things like that. Things are there, the legal coverage they are for you, but not in the informal. Then informal එක ගිහිල්ලා ගන්න ලේසි නා. When you go to bank they might ask different type of documents and applications, all this stuff, right? But you have to see the benefits of it. You have a legal coverage as well, right? Rather than going for informal sources. Then හොඳම example එක ඔයාලට මතක කරගන්න දැන් COVID කාලේ loans වලට දුන්නා නේද some relief period. So that is for the loans taken from the banks and the authorized financial institutions, not from those poly mudalaliyo or whatever this stuff, right? So for you to eligible for those concessions you must have obtained the loans from a formal source. So that's a kind of a good question. So if we check so the answers to you, there are advantages. There are certain advantages. And here, guys, you need to describe in marking scheme. It clearly shows the fact that you need to describe here, right? So describe 4 advantages. So facts, you are getting 2 marks. So can you see the marks allocation? Take a fact, take a 0.5 marks. So 0.5 into 4, 2 marks. And for explanation, again 0.5 marks into 4. That's how you get the full marks of 4. Then after the fully 4 marks. නිකම් points 4ක් ලියුවා කියලා ආට ලකුණු 4 ලැබෙන්නේ නැහැ. Right? You got that point. Explanation. The third about the interest rate. Right? Protection from a collectrians. Formal and exact conditions. Able to get more time for repayment. Motivate to continue the business. Supervision by the lender. Less possibility of failure. Comparatively lower interest rate. Okay, when you go for those the polyයට දෙන තැන්වල නේද ඔයාට එතකොට ගොඩක් high interest තමයි ඒගොල්ලෝ charge කරන්නේ. And you are very unsure about your collections. සමහර ඔයාගේ collections උත් ඒගොල්ලන්ට අයිති වෙනවා. ඒ වගේ වැඩ තමයි වෙන්නේ, right? The insights go, it's better and it's not the better, it's you must go with the formal sources. Right, එතකොට අතනින් ලැබුණා 6 marks if I'm not mistaken. Yes, එතකොට මෙතන දැනට ඔයාලට තියෙනවා sorry 6 නෙමෙයි 8 සහ මෙතනින් දැනට check කරලා තියෙනවා 4. එතකොට 8 plus 4 so far 12 marks. And there's another part එතන ඔයාලට තව ලකුණු 2ක් ලැබෙනවා නේද? එතකොට all together 2019 වල weightage එක ටිකක් අඩු වෙලා තියෙනවා 12 14 which is 7%, right? paper එකේ ලකුණු 100න් 7ක් 2020 වල තිබුණා 10% නේද 10%. Well, with that, shall we move to the next question, which is asking the fact that compare the bearer checks and the order check. Make a පැහැදිලිව අපිට කියන්න පුළුවන්. There's a O bearer notation is there with the that's be struck off or not. So that's what we need to see. Well, so I believe okay, anyway, I'll give like another 1 minute for this. Most of the major banks have been registered. Well, let's quickly move to the next one, which is compare the bearer check and the order check. Something you can work it out easily. Now, what do you think has a more security? Here's the order check, because why it's being ordered to pay for that specific person who is the payee, who's the name mentioned on the check. And if you want to transfer that check, you need to have an endorsement, because why it's been order check. And also more security, for more security concerns, we have this bearer check and the order check. Well, so that's about it, guys. So we talk about fully 2020 and 2019 for the rest of the year, especially 2021. By the time when I prepared the Q21 was not available. So what I'll do is 2021 question I'll share to the WhatsApp group. So you have to start working on that as well. And please start working on, if you haven't started yet, 2018, 2017, 16, 15, at least up to 15. So please make sure you complete, and we'll discuss next week and also along with the 2021. And make sure if there's any missed sessions, speak to me, get the recordings and complete the lesson. And right after the next week, we'll be coming up with a new lesson, which is lesson number 11, trade lesson. Right, guys. So thank you for joining with that, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks.